my name is Kat, and today I'm going to be talking about HEIR of Fire by Sarah J Maas. So the non-spoilery part of this video is going to be pretty short. For those of you who don't know, HEIR of Fire is the third book in the Throne of Glass series. Book 1 is Throne of Glass. Book 2 is Crown of Midnight. There's also The Assassin's Blade, which is a collection of 5 prequel novellas. This is not required reading in the series, but I do still highly recommend it. So the Throne of Glass series is one of my current favorite ongoing series. It's high fantasy and totally epic, and I'm just loving everything that's happening with this series. I'm not going to talk about the plot of HEIR of Fire at all because it will spoil the other books, but I did talk about the other books in previous videos, so I'll link those below if you want to know more about like the overall premise of the series. But basically, if you like high fantasy and you haven't started the series yet, you really need to get on it, because it is just one of the most epic high fantasy series I have ever read, and the main character, Selena, is one of the most badass, awesome protagonists I have ever encountered. Sarah J Maas just keeps outdoing herself in the awesomeness department. Like, Throne of Glass was good. Crown of Midnight was better. HEIR of Fire was the best thing ever in the world. And that's really it for this non-spoilery section. So if you haven't yet read HEIR of Fire, this is your cue to peace out, because I'm about to get into spoilery discussion and you don't want this book ruined for you. Trust me. Go read all of these books and then come back and we can talk about them. But starting now, we're gonna talk about spoilers. Okay. I took a lot of notes. Like, it's been a while since I took notes for a book review, but I did, and now I'm gonna go through them and try to share my thoughts with you guys. These notes aren't very coherent, but I'm gonna do my best to relay them to you. So we had 3 main storylines going on in this book, and I'm gonna try to focus on one at a time, starting with Manon. I liked Manon's storyline. I mean, it was my least favorite, but when you compare Manon's story to Selena's story, and the story of what's happening in Durland with Kale and Dorian, like, it's not much of a competition. Manon's story really contributed to the broadening of the scope for this story overall. Instead of just following our core cast of Selena and Dorian and Kale, we follow someone completely new who has nothing to do with them yet. It was really entertaining and fascinating to learn about the different witches and their covens and them training with the wyvern. But what I really want to know is, how is this going to play into Selena's story? I kind of feel like the Manon storyline could have been its own separate novella. I mean, obviously I can see where it's going long term. Like, the king is building an army of witches on Wyvern to just decimate anyone who tries to oppose him. But I'm also kind of questioning how solid of a plan this is on his part. I'm like 99% sure that this is really going to backfire in the king's face in these coming books. Let's talk a little bit about the wyvern, because that was an aspect that I was not anticipating. Dragons, kind of, essentially. Dragons! My favorite scene from Manon's point of view was definitely the Titus versus Abraxas fight. Up until that point, I was enjoying her chapters. They were interesting enough, but they didn't, like, have me hooked on them. And I really thought that Manon and Titus were gonna end up together, not in a romantic way that came out a little bit wrong, but you know what I mean. You know, it seemed like the obvious thing to happen. So I was very pleasantly surprised when it didn't happen. Manon didn't get the biggest, baddest, meanest dragon, wyvern. She claimed the bait beast, the underdog. And from there, her chapters became immensely more engaging, because now she had like this real struggle to overcome. And while Manon wasn't really likable, Abraxas was, and the way she cared for him made her more likable. What also kind of redeemed her was when she saved Petra at the end. When Iskra, who didn't like her when Iskra killed Petra's wyvern. Oh, that made me so mad because we knew that Petra really cared about her wyvern, and now it's dead, but I was really happy to see Manon caring a little bit and saving Petra. It reinforced what the Crochan witch said later about how these Iron Teeth witches aren't born heartless and soulless. They are made that way. They're made into monsters. And the fact that Manon kind of thinks about that further and starts to question it a little bit was very telling, that she might possibly get on Selena's side in the future books. At least I hope so. Like, if Manon doesn't find some kind of redemption and cross over to the good side, then I'm gonna be kind of frustrated, but I really think that's gonna happen. I'm pretty sure that's the direction the Manon story is gonna go in. Okay, let's move on to the Aderlin storyline with Kale and Dorian and some of the new characters we got to meet. So first we met Avion, who was like the douchiest douchebag in all of the kingdom, but then we find out that he's not the douchiest of douchebags. It's all a ruse. I started to suspect that he wasn't the antagonist he was kind of made out to be when he first started disappearing from his own parties. Like, you just know he's up to something, and the something that I thought he was up to was just being against the king. Like, I didn't know he was a rebel, but I was really suspecting that he wasn't the king's whore, as he was called. I was so freaking happy to learn that he was on Selena's side, and not only was he just on her side, like, he was so loyal to her. It just touched my heart. I wanted that Avion and Aelin reunion so bad. Like, I want them to be reunited because it would make her so happy and him so happy, and I need this to happen as soon as possible in the next book. Like, I wanted it in this book, but that didn't happen. So, Sarah, please, next book, Avion, Aelin reunion, I need this. It was just so nice to find someone who was that loyal to Selena. Like, she doesn't have a throne anymore, so he's gonna build her a new one from the bones of her enemies. It's a bright new kingdom. I loved seeing that little glimpse of him in the flashback, how he's like her only friend, but it doesn't matter to him. Like, he's okay being her only friend. He'll be her only friend. He'll be like such a good friend that she doesn't need more friends. Oh, but then we have that moment where she offered to be Dorian's friend, and Dorian is like, I have a friend, and he's talking about Kale, and oh, the flashback was so cute at that part. I mean, the rest of the flashback was not cute, but that part was kind of cute. It was so painful how Selena's family and court was just like destroyed and broken and scattered. Her parents were murdered, and Avion has to like put on this act that he's working for the king, and he has this terrible reputation amongst his own people. It was just heartbreaking. And I want them together. I mean, not romantically, maybe romantically. Like, they're cousins, but they're not related enough that a romance is off the table. Romance or friendship, whatever. I just want that reunion moment. I want it so bad. And I know Avion is a little bit worried about what Selena might think of him, but I'm pretty sure she'll forgive him. Like, she's doing something similar. They're both just trying to kind of play the king's game and survive until they can take him down. And they're gonna take him down. They're gonna reunite, and it's gonna be beautiful, and then they're gonna destroy him. I also appreciated the kind of tentative friendship that formed between Avion and Kale. And Avion even tries to save Kale in the end. Like, he tells the king that Kale was blackmailing him and that Kale is still like on the king's side, tries to keep that bridge intact, but then Kale goes and burns it anyways. I was happy that Kale finally took a stand against the king and like really made his mind up on which side he was on. But I was still kind of frustrated that it took so long. Like, I was kind of frustrated with Kale in this book. I mean, when you compare him to the other characters who are all so loyal to Selena, like Avion, so loyal to Selena. Rowan, so loyal to Selena. Even Dorian, when he finds out that Selena is Aelin, like, he still keeps her secret. He's still on her side. He still wants her to win. Chaol was the only one who was really wavering throughout the book. And I know it's like part of his journey. He's raised this way, and it's kind of been an awakening seeing that what the king has proclaimed and what he grew up believing isn't necessarily how things are. I just wish he came around sooner. I mean, he pulled through in the end. I still like Chaol. I'm not like against him or anything, but oh, I just wish he did it sooner, especially because he chose the worst possible moment to take a stand. Like, Avion just gave himself up with the hopes that maybe Chaol would escape being imprisoned or killed or whatever, and that's when Chaol decides to take a stand. Like, the worst possible moment to take a stand. I mean, maybe it was like the most powerful moment to take a stand, but that scene, seriously, everything went wrong in that scene. Avion gets outed and locked up as prisoner, and Sorsha gets beheaded, which didn't really upset me too much, but more on that in a second. Because what really upset me, sorry, I was hitting my notebook on my knees, I'm really upset. What really upset me was when the king put the collar on Dorian, and now he has Dorian, and no, Dorian, baby, no. We have to save him. We have to save him. Like, I can't even stand thinking about this situation with Dorian being like the king's slave. I hate it so much. I hate it more than I hated the Sorsha and Dorian relationship, which I really, really hated. Like, I apologize to anyone who liked them together and who shipped it, but I did not ship it. I wanted that ship to sink to the bottom of the ocean forever. Here are some of my notes on the scene where they first kissed. No, no, no. Sorsha, stop, no. Pretty much sums up my feelings for the entire relationship. I mean, okay, fine, she was nice enough. Like, she kept Dorian's secrets, she kept Selena's secrets, and, you know, it was nice that Dorian had kind of a positive relationship at this time since Selena was gone and Chaol and him were kind of on the outs, but still, I had never been so happy for a non-antagonist death. Really, I was just glad that her beheading kind of took her out of the running for Dorian. And yes, I do still ship Selena and Dorian for Endgame. It's just like, if anyone should be against her, it should be Dorian as the king's son, but he still supports her, even when he finds out that she is Aelin. He still keeps her secrets, he still worries about her, and then there was that part about how if Chaol was really Selena's mate, she wouldn't have been able to hurt him. So yeah, I'm thinking Chaol is not Selena's mate. Maybe it's Dorian, maybe it's Avion. Honestly, at this point, well, I do consider myself Team Dorian if I have to pick one of the guys. Actually, I consider myself Team Selena. Like, I just love Selena. I think she's awesome and badass, and whoever she chooses to be with romantically, I support it. Selena, I support your life decisions as long as you choose Dorian. Just kidding, I support all of your choices, but seriously, I hope you end up with Dorian. Speaking of Selena, let's move on to the Selena plotline. Hers was definitely my favorite of the story arcs going on. Like, I was consistently looking forward to getting back to her point of view. It was a bit rough at times seeing how she was just drowning in guilt and grief and like hating herself. The self-loathing was difficult to read about because, no, Selena, I love you, cheer up. But the character growth she went through in this book was just phenomenal. Like, Selena starts off this series as a badass. Like, I kind of feel like she was a badass even when she was 8 years old. Come on, you gotta be kind of a badass to survive how she did. But from book 1 to book 2 to book 3, like, she continues to get more and more badass. Like, it's exponential, her badassery. And I just loved all of the aspects of Selena's plotline. Like, she has the internal struggle with grief grief and guilt and kind of coming to terms with what she has to do. Then we have her learning her magic and kind of accepting the fae side of her that she has always kind of feared and hated. And I also really loved the relationship between Rowan and Selena. Like, he ended up being so good for her. And I loved that the Rowan and Selena relationship wasn't a romantic thing. Like, there were a couple of instances where I kind of felt it almost heading in that direction, but ultimately it didn't. They're just like pair body. What's it actually called? Karamamanan. Kamaran. They're BFFs. The only thing that I didn't like was that as much as Rowan was protective and loyal to Selena, he was more loyal to Queen Maeve, who was a bitch. So of course it was just freaking perfect when they had that end confrontation and Selena got Maeve to release Rowan from his oath, and then he pledged a new oath to Selena, and that was just wonderful. I love how even though he's sworn this oath of submission to Selena, like nothing really changes in their dynamic at all. I just love everything about their relationship. Like, that was the highlight of this book for me, and there were a lot of great moments throughout. Like, there was a lot of competition for favorite part of Heir of Fire, but the Rowan-Selena relationship wins. So now I want to talk a little bit about my predictions slash hopes for the next book. There's a couple of lingering mysteries that I really hope get addressed. The one in Manon's storyline about how the food and the men, like their blood tastes funny and like rotten somehow. We never found out what was going on with that. What's going on with that? And the ring that Selena traded to Maeve in order to free Rowan, like, I really think there's something up about that ring. I don't know, I don't feel like Maeve would do something like that if it was just like sentimental value. I don't think she has the capacity to feel sentiment. So I'm kind of thinking that ring is going to come into play somehow later. A couple things that I desperately want from this next book include the Aiden-Aelin reunion. Like, that needs to happen. I need that. I need it. I also really need Dorian to be freed. Like, if that doesn't happen, I'm freaking out just thinking of it not happening. I want it, I need it. Can the king just stop? I really want one of the towers to be destroyed. Like, you have the 3 towers that are kind of keeping the spell in effect. I want one of them to go down. I want to see if that brings magic back. I also really want Manon to come into play. Like, I want the storylines to intersect. I feel like they must, because we wouldn't have this whole Manon introduction only for it not to come into play until book 6. Like, that doesn't quite add up, so I feel like we're definitely gonna get our Manon and Selena plotlines intersecting. I hope so, at least. But I kind of feel like Selena's main goal in this next book is to get that amulet back from Arobin. Like, we're gonna have an Arobin confrontation. Now, since I've read the Assassin's Blade novellas, I know a little bit more about Arobin than those of you who have not yet read that, so I'm not gonna spoil anything, but I don't think it's a spoiler to say that I hate Arobin. I mean, I hate him just for the fact that he stole this amulet off of a half-drowned 8-year-old girl. So yeah, I am not an Arobin fan. I hope Selena kills him a little bit. That would be nice. I mean, it'd be okay if she didn't kill him as long as she gets that amulet back. And because I'm such a huge fan of the Rowan-Selena relationship, like, it pains me a little bit to think of them being separated in this next book. So I hope that doesn't happen. Like, I hope Rowan goes after her anyways, even though he's supposed to stay in Gwendolyn. Like, I hope he just kind of falcons up and goes to Adarlan and is like her friendly falcon companion until they knock one of the towers down and he comes back as himself. And I'm just so excited for this next book. Like, I know it's a ways away. This one just came out, so we gotta wait like at least a year. We don't even have a title or a release date, but I want it, I want it, I want it. It just became my most anticipated book of next year, I think. I don't know, I really want those Lunar Chronicles books, but this one I might want a little bit more. But yeah, I think that is everything I wanted to talk about in this video today. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you have a great night, and I will have another vlog up soon, so I will see you then. Goodbye! We're kind of echoey in here. I'm not liking that. Can I be less echo? Oh, that's not helping. Ah, shit, I'm recording. My bad. The dragons, Werven, Wyvern, Wyvern. You just know he's up to... Jesus Christ. And I will have another vlog up soon, so I will say goodbye. Sorry, that got weird. I've been vlogging for like an hour and a half now. I need to wrap this up. I mean, I'm wrapping it up. I need to brain